Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. Today we'll study Surah Shura, to be precise, verses 39 to 43. These five verses occur near the end of this surah, and they are an object lesson in the art of forgiveness, I would say. Yes, I call it an art because forgiveness is something which, although does come naturally to us on many instances, but then it is difficult at times to forgive people for the mistakes that they have made. So let us see how the Quran addresses this issue. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيُ هُمْ يَنْتَصِرُونَ وَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ سَيِّئَةٌ مِثْلُهَا فَمَنْ عَفَا وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ وَلَمَنِ انتَصَرَ بَعْدَ ظُلْمِهِ فَأُولَئِكَ مَا عَلَيْهِم مِّن سَبِيلٍ إِنَّمَا السَّبِيلُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَظْلِمُونَ النَّاسَ وَيَبْغُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ أُولَئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَغَفَرَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمِنْ أَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. And those who take revenge only when they are oppressed, because the recompense of evil is the same evil. Then who forgave and reformed matters, his reward rests with God. Indeed, God does not like the unjust. And take note that those who have been oppressed and they took revenge after it, then it is they who have no blame on them. Blame is on those only who are unjust and show rebelliousness in the land without any justification. It is these people for whom there is a painful torment. However, those who show patience and forgive, then these indeed are the works that have been emphasized. So, the philosophy of forgiveness, or the whole decorum of forgiveness, has been outlined in a very compact manner in this set of verses. The first thing which is mentioned is that there are people who are commendable in their own life. They are commendable such that the Almighty is full of praise for them. And who are they? They are those who take revenge only when they are oppressed, because the recompense of evil is an equal form of evil. So the revenge which is spoken of here, of course, is something which is an option which is given. The issue of retaliation, the issue of qisas, and many other things that are similarly linked can clearly be seen that anyone who is offended, anyone who is harmed, the Almighty gives that person the authority to harm the other person equally. However, much greater and more rewarding in the sight of God is the attitude of that person who forgives. So the Quran says, فَمَنْ عَفَا وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. So he who forgave and reformed matters, his reward rests with God. So it's like a appeal which is being made by the Almighty to his creatures that, well, forgiveness is something which is difficult at times, but if you decide to forgive, the Quran says, فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, then such is the reward of forgiveness that only God is going to repay that reward. And this is a huge it is a huge matter of affection from God, that He is giving, He's bent upon giving, and the extent to which He will give is immeasurable. So when it is said that something rewards rests on the Almighty, it actually refers to the immeasurable and the huge expanse of the reward that a person might reap. So again, this is something which is an incentive given by the Almighty, that if you are able to forgive the person, overcome the pain, overcome the loss that you might have suffered, then don't forget that the compensation of that suffering that you have done without taking revenge and forgiving the person is going to be huge. It might be unfathomable. You will not even be able to realize that. And viewers, we know that the mercy of the Almighty is such that He Himself is so forgiving to His creatures. He is someone who has made incumbent upon Himself that when a person commits something wrong in frenzy, and that offense relates to the Almighty, then the Almighty says that if you immediately repent after realizing that you have done something wrong, then the Quran says that the Almighty will forgive that person immediately. So, إِنَّمَا التَّوْبَةُ عَلَى اللَّهِ لِلَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ السُّوءَ بِجَهَالَةٍ. These are the words of Surah Nisa, in which it is said that it is mandatory upon the Almighty to forgive people who do something wrong in frenzy, by being overcome with emotions. But as soon as they immediately realize this, they come out of it. Summa yatubuna min kareeb. They immediately realize, as soon as they come out of that frenzy, that they had done something wrong, and they seek God's forgiveness. Then the Almighty says that He is definitely going to forgive that person. Such is the mercy of the Almighty, and the graciousness and the wholehearted way in which He will forgive is something which is an inspiration for all of us, and it makes us realize that if such vast is the mercy of the Almighty, we too, as human beings, as individuals who look upon other people who might have harmed them, should also show that magnanimity. And that magnanimity, of course, is difficult to muster. It's difficult to encapsulate unless we are able to see how the Almighty Himself deals with people, how He is prone to forgiveness. He's already always ready for people to come to Him, ask for forgiveness, and He is ready to forgive that person. However, there is some explanation in this as well, that if the offense is committed against an individual, and that offense is something in which that individual is somehow or in some form harmed, then the Almighty says that forgiveness will first rest on that person's forgiveness. If that person is not forgiving, then the Almighty says that the forgiveness will not be accepted. However much you might show that penitence, however much you might try to atone, but unless the person against you have committed that harm and that offense, he or she is ready to forgive you, the Almighty is not going to. So this also shows how important it is that we are able to make peace with our brethren, and how important are the rights of people who are around us. The Almighty has given that authority in the hands of people, that if the people are doing wrong against you, then it is you who has to decide whether you would like to forgive or not. And the Almighty says, yes, I can forgive things which relate to me only. I can forgive that. But as far as forgiveness is concerned, in which other peoples are offended, then this is something which the Almighty has given the other person the authority. So the words are, وَلَمَنِ انْتَصَرَ بَعْدَ ظُلْمِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَا عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ. And take note that those who have been oppressed and they took revenge after it, then it is they who have no blame on them. So the other thing which is emphasized here is that the whole decorum in which the Almighty has presented this protocol is that if a person insists or he thinks that he would not like to forgive that person, because at times we know that there are certain people who are incorrigible, there are people who need to be taken to task, who need to be at times they have to be punished or taken revenge from, then the Almighty says that such an act is not blameworthy at all. You should not blame people if they are taking equal amount of revenge. It is something which they have an equal right to. Also important here, dear viewers, is the backdrop that might be also considered, that in many there are cults, there are situations in which people demand this unconditional forgiveness from their own brethren, and they say that, well, whatever has happened, you must forgive people at all cost. So this is like taking things a bit too far, because in the Sharia of the Almighty, taking an equal amount of revenge is something which is the authority of a person, which is the right of a person, because we know that there are certain offenses which have such a deep impact on a person, his own psyche, that his own performance, his own behavior, his own output in life becomes severely dented and affected if he is forced to forgive other people. So forgiveness has to come from the heart. Forgiveness has got to be a person's own personal individual decision. It cannot be imposed on that person. And if a person decides not to forgive, it is here that this verse assures such a person that if you don't decide to forgive and you take an equal amount of retaliation and revenge, then this is no blame on you. You're not blameworthy. It is not that you're doing something wrong. Yes, it could have been a much better choice for you to forgive, but if you don't decide to forgive for any reason, then you are not to blame. In fact, the Quran says, إِنَّمَا السَّبِيلُ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَظْلِمُونَ النَّاسَ وَيَبْغُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. It says, contrary to this, blame is on those only who are unjust and show rebelliousness in the land without any justification. It is these people for whom there is a painful torment. So it is like turning the coin the other way. And the Almighty has said here That if you think that people who are taking revenge, they are doing something of a I mean, lesser nature maybe, or something which is evil in itself, then this is not true at all. Blame is actually on those people who force a people force a person to take revenge, because they are the ones who harmed, they are the ones who inflicted this harm. And now, if they are facing an equal amount of offense or revenge, then again, this is something they have that has been forced upon them, and therefore they are not to be blamed. The blame is on the person who caused that harm himself. And then the Quran again, once again, tries to urge people, وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَغَفَرَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. However, those who show patience and forgive, then these indeed are the works that have been emphasized. So here again, the Quran has mentioned an additional thing, which is a very, very important guideline for all of us. And that is that, yes, the Quran says that if you are able to forgive, then this is something of a very worthy and a noble thing. But the Quran says in order to forgive, the prerequisite of that forgiveness is patience, is to restrain, self restrain. And it is this patience, dear viewers, that is the biggest, perhaps, lesson that we can gain from the month that we are going through, which is now almost two-thirds gone. That we need to understand that forgiveness comes with patience. Forgiveness comes with that patient behavior and steadfast behavior. And this patience itself owes our connection with the Almighty. The more we are connected to the Almighty, the more we are patient. And the more we are patient, the more we are forgiving. So it goes back, all the way back, to the same thing that we have been discussing all along, that if you have a strong God connection, if you are able to connect with God, and there are so many things that make you connected with God, and primarily as soon as we open our eyes and we observe the universe around us, the people around us, the atmosphere around us, we see that we have been blessed by the Almighty with so many things which are nourishing us, which are nurturing us. Our surroundings, our atmosphere, our environment is all trying to nurture us and nourish us in some form or the other. And not only that, we find our parents, we find people around us, our extended family doing the same. And then look at our own system, our own eyes and ears and faculties, and so many systems that are running in our own bodies, how they efficiently make us observe our routines. And this is how we thank the Almighty. And when we thank the Almighty, we have that strong connection with Him. And in this beautiful month, the thing that we often are able to gain is this patience. And this patience, of course, comes with restraint, with the fact that we are not going to eat and drink for a certain period of time. And this certain period of time, which is allocated for every person, is a time for reflection. It is a time in which we should be soul searching. We should be seeing what life we have spent in the past, and what exactly is the plan for the next year. So the Quran says that if you have to forgive people, then you have to exercise patience. And if you have to exercise patience, we know that it has to be because of the fact that we are connected to God. Because we cannot forgive people unless we have that incentive from the Almighty, that if you forgive people, show restraint, then God Almighty is going to take charge of matters. He is going to set right affairs, and He is going to reward you. So patience is something which the Quran at other instances also said, وَمَا sabruka illa billah, which means that you cannot be patient. You cannot exercise patience unless you have that connection with God, unless you are deeply related to God. So through the Quran, through the prayer, through charitable acts, through acknowledging the favors of the Almighty, by feeling happy at a lot of du'as that we did stood fulfilled, by repenting for everything that we might have done wrong. All these instances are instances in which we are able to come closer to God, and hence they make us more connected with Him, they make us more patient, and it is this patience which instills that forgiveness in us. And one of the other things that might also help in forgiving other people is that we want ourselves to be forgiven from the Almighty. And this is something which is everyone's desire, that the Almighty forgive us. So it's but natural to pay back by saying that, well, if we deserve this, that we are we would be forgiven by the Almighty, let us also be people who are forgiving to other people. So let us earn God's forgiveness by forgiving other people as much as possible. A person who is forgiving, we all know, is a person who sleeps well at night. A person who is non-forgiving, or at times he or she is, he is burdened with the with how the other people or other people have behaved with him or her, and as a result, cause that loss. If you continue to brood over that, if you continue to think about that, we will just suffer in our mind. So if there is nothing that can be done in such a situation, then to put ourselves to peace, it is best that we just relieve ourselves by consigning the matter to the Almighty, by telling Him that it is beyond me, O God, to deal with such a person. I am not being able to forgive him, but you give me the patience and the restraint and the courage to forgive such a person. And if I have that courage, then please, I would like to pass it on to other people as well. And oh God, please forgive us for our mistakes and forgive us for what we do deliberately, and also what we do unintentionally. So you see this forgiveness, how it connects you to God immediately, and at the same time, it also connects you to our own brethren. So with this, we come to an end to this discussion, and we can now open the forum for questions.
Our first question comes from Faiz. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
السلام علیکم سر.
وعلیکم السلام.
سر میرا سوال یہ ہے کہ بنی اسرائیل کی قوم کو اتنا فیور کیوں کیا گیا، حالانکہ انہوں نے اتنی نافرمانی کی، اتنی ناشکری کی، اور پھر بعد میں وہ دنیا میں افراتفری بھی پھیلا رہے ہیں. اس کے بارے میں آپ کو پتہ تو پلیز.
دیکھیں، ان کو اگر فیور کیا گیا تو ان کی سزا بھی اتنی ہی سخت ہے. ان کے ہاں 2000 سال تک انبیاء آتے رہے، اور ایک انبیاء کی چین ہے، رسول بھی آئے، انبیاء بھی آئے، ان کو شہادت کے منصب پر فائز کیا گیا، اور ان کو کہا گیا کہ آپ کی ذمہ داری ہے کہ آپ نے دوسری اقوام تک دین کو پہنچانا ہے. بہت بڑی ذمہ داری سے ان کو سرفراز کیا گیا، لیکن وہ ذمہ داری کو انہوں نے پورا نہیں کیا. پھر اس کو ان کی ذمہ داری سے ان کو ہٹا دیا گیا، اور جب وہ حضرت عیسیٰ کو قتل کرنے کے درپے ہوئے تو ان کو یہ کہا گیا کہ اب آپ ساری عمر ان لوگوں کے تحت رہیں گے کہ جو حضرت مسیح کے فالوورز ہیں. اور پھر یہ بھی کہا گیا کہ ان کے لیے جو جلا وطنی ہے وہ لکھ دی گئی ہے کہ وہ ایک جگہ پہ جائیں گے، وہاں جمع ہوں گے، وہاں سے کھدیڑے جائیں گے، پھر وہ کسی اور جگہ جائیں گے، وہاں جمع ہوں گے، پھر وہاں سے نکالے جائیں گے. تو یہ پوری کی پوری سائیکل ہے جو حضرت مسیح کے زمانے سے آج تک آپ ان کی ہسٹری کو ٹریس کریں گے تو یہ ان کو درپیش ہے. ابھی اسرائیل میں ان کا کٹ ہو رہا ہے، لیکن اس کو اگر آپ تاریخ کی نگاہوں سے دیکھیں تو یہ 40-50 سال ہی اس میں سارے گزرے ہیں. اس سے پہلے ہمیں معلوم ہے کہ ہٹلر نے ان کے ساتھ کیا حشر کیا، اس سے پہلے ہمیں معلوم ہے کہ یورپ میں ان کے ہاں کیا معاملہ ہوا، اور یہ سارا پروسیس ہے جو تاریخ نے بتایا ہے. تو جتنا ان کی ذمہ داری سخت تھی، اور اب اتنا ہی ان کی جو امتحان ہے، ان کی سزا سخت ہے. تو ایسا نہیں ہے کہ وہ کوئی خاص وجہ سے ان کو کوئی فیور کیا گیا. فیور ان کو نہیں کیا گیا، بلکہ ان کو ایک ذمہ داری دی گئی، اور جب ذمہ داری انہوں نے پوری نہیں کی تو اب وہ پوری دنیا میں اس لحاظ سے معتوب ہیں اللہ تعالیٰ کے.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Next question comes from Abrar. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
سر میرا کوشچن ہے کہ ہمارے یہاں ہندو اسکالرس یہ کہتے ہیں کہ جو انسان مرنے کے بعد آخر میں کیا ہوگا کہ جو انسان کا وجود ہے وہ خدا کے وجود کے ساتھ مل جائے گا، اور اس کے بعد اس کی لائف ایٹرنل ہو جائے گی، اور اس کو وہ موکشا کا نام بھی دیتے ہیں. اور وہ اسلام پر اس طرح سے بھی کرٹیسائز کرتے ہیں کہ اسلام میں جو کنسپٹ ہے کہ جنت میں جا کے ہماری ہر خواہش کو پورا کیا جائے گا، یہ بظاہر لاجیکلی جو ہے وہ مطلب یہ صحیح نہیں ہے. کیونکہ اگر ہم دنیا میں بھی دیکھیں تو اگر یو ایس کا کوئی پریزیڈنٹ ہے تو وہ بھی چاہے گا کہ پوری دنیا کو رول کرے. تو انسان کے ڈیزائرز کا تو کوئی اینڈ ہے ہی نہیں. تو کیا سچ میں جو ہے ہماری جنت کے اندر ہر خواہش کو پورا کیا جائے گا، یا پھر اس پر کوئی لمٹ لگائی گئی ہے؟
نہیں، دیکھیں، یہ سوال ہی کوئی بہت زیادہ منطقی نہیں سمجھ میں آتا کہ سوال کیوں کیا گیا. انعام کی تو کبھی لمٹ نہیں لگائی جاتی. جب آپ کو یہ بتایا جا رہا ہے کہ آپ کو ایک لمٹ لیس انعام ملے گا اگر آپ فلاں فلاں کام کریں گے، اچھے اعمال کریں گے، تو یہ تو کوئی ایسی غلط چیز نہیں ہے اور نہ کوئی غیر منطقی چیز ہے. یہ بات کہ آپ خدا میں ضم ہو جائیں گے، اس کے لیے کوئی دلیل چاہیے. یا تو آپ یہ بتائیں کہ فلاں دلیل ہے، فلاں جگہ سے یہ چیز معلوم ہوئی ہے. کیا قرآن مجید میں یا کسی بھی اللہ تعالیٰ کی ایسی کتاب میں جو اوتھینٹک کتاب ہم جس کو کہہ سکتے ہیں، کیا یہ بات بیان ہوئی ہے؟ تو یہ جو وحدت الوجود کا تصور ہے، یہ بہت پرانا تصور چلا آ رہا ہے، اور یہ اصل میں پیدا ہوا ہے اس چیز سے کہ جب اعتراض کیا گیا، جو ڈیوائن اسکرپچرز ہیں وہ یہ کہتے ہیں کہ کائنات کو اللہ تعالیٰ عدم سے وجود میں لے کے آئے ہیں. بدیع السماوات، یعنی آؤٹ آف نتھنگنیس ہی ہیز کریٹڈ سم تھنگ. تو یہ ایک نان سائنٹیفک بات لگتی ہے دماغوں کو कि कैसे नथिंगनेस से या कुछ ना हो और फिर कुछ बन जाए। इसको हल करने के लिए जो ये वहदतुल वजूद का नज़रिया है, उसने ये चीज़ पेश की कि अल्लाह ताला ही की मैनिफेस्टेशन है ये दुनिया, अल्लाह ताला ही का एक इम्तिदाद है, और जब क़यामत आएगी तो वही दुनिया जो है वो वापस उसमें ज़म हो जाएगी या वो इम्तिदाद ख़त्म हो जाएगा। तो ये तो असल में एक ख़ास फ़लसफ़ा है जो वजूद में आया इस जवाब के लिए कि अदम से कायनात को वजूद में आना जो है, ये लोग नहीं इसको समझ सकते थे और नहीं मानते थे कि ये क्या बात है, ये बहुत बड़ा दावा है। तो इसको बताने के लिए कि नहीं, अदम से नहीं है बल्कि खुदा की ज़ात से कायनात वजूद में आएगी और उसी की ज़ात में ज़म हो जाएगी। तो ये बहुत पुराना एक फ़लसफ़ा है जो सूफियों के यहाँ भी है, हिंदुओं के यहाँ भी है, योगियों के यहाँ भी है, मुसलमानों के यहाँ है, आप ईसाइयों के यहाँ देखेंगे, ये बहुत एक आलमगीर फ़लसफ़ा है। तो असल सवाल ये है कि इसकी इसकी क्या दलील क्या है? क्या कोई दलील है इसकी कि अल्लाह ताला का इब्तिदाद है फिर अल्लाह ताला में ज़म हो जाएगी कायनात?
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There's a question in the chat that I got from Siddiqa, which is, who does one give fitrana to? I've always given it to local mosque, but can I send it to Pakistan?
देखिए, as far as fitrana is concerned, it is charity. And charity is something that you can dispense with in any place. If you're living in Canada, you will have charities there, all sorts of charities. You might have people who are deserving, you might have old homes, you might have orphanages. So, yes, you can dispense with that charity in your own country. And if you wish, you can send it to other countries as well. You can send it to your home country in Pakistan. So, it's like charity. And charity has no bounds, it has no boundaries, in fact.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There was another question by Chini Abid. And the question was that her children does not believe in that Quran says eating zabiha meat or anything about halal meat. So she wanted to know that if you could explain, because it's hard for her to explain it to her children, and they're adults, and she wants you to explain what is zabiha actually.
Right. So you see, this is an important Abrahamic sunnah in which you slaughter the animal in a particular way and you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. You'll not find it in the Quran, because just as you would not find the 5 prayers in the Quran or the zakat percentages in the Quran, because these practices have been transmitted parallel to the Quran as sources of religion itself, and they are called the Abrahamic practices. So the first thing is that everything of religion is not found in the Quran. Quran is a scripture which is basically, it provides us with our faith details and some of the other things that we know are found in the Quran. But as far as worship rituals are concerned, many other etiquette are concerned, they have been transmitted as Abrahamic Sunnah. Now, more importantly is the fact that why is it that we are required to eat halal meat or to eat zabiha, as is generally understood, because they are our younger generation who lives abroad. At times they don't understand why is this restriction being imposed on them, and also because of the fact that there is a opinion of Imam Shafi which says that you can eat the zabiha of the people of the book, so therefore they consume that meat wherever they go, to Christians or Jewish restaurants. Jewish restaurants, by the way, are perfectly fine, but Christian restaurants, they consume this meat because they think that meat of the people of the book has been allowed. So allow me a little to explain this whole thing, because it's an important area. First of all, we have to understand that taking the life of an animal is something that we are not authorized to do. So in the first place, the importance of life has been delineated, elucidated by scriptures, that taking the life itself is something that we cannot even think of. Human life is out of question. Even animal life is something that we don't have a right to, because it's a living being that we are taking away the life from that living being. However, the Almighty says that on one condition, and that condition is that because these animals have been made for the benefit of mankind and human beings, so that they consume them. So therefore, there is one exception, and that is if you seek permission from God, then yes, you can slaughter that animal. So when we say the takbir, which is Bismillah Allahu Akbar, which actually makes that meat to be halal, to be worthy of consumption, we are expressing our permission. We are seeking that permission from the Almighty, that God, please allow us to take the life. We could not have taken this life without your permission. It is absolutely haram for us. We could have, we could have maintained our living on vegetation, or being a vegetarian, or on other things. But if we have to consume this meat, we need to kill this animal. And we could not have killed this animal unless you have allowed us. And your allowance is expressed by this takbir, Bismillah Allahu Akbar. So our younger generation needs to be told that when we say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, we are now authorized to take the life of that animal, which we otherwise were not allowed to, because such is the sanctity of animal life also. Hence, when we now consume meat which is, slaughtered in a way, or the animal is not slaughtered in a way that Bismillah Allahu Akbar has been pronounced at the time of its slaughter, then we are eating unauthorized meat. We are eating from a life which was taken without God's permission. And this is a big thing, that we have slaughtered an animal for our own pleasure without seeking God's permission. So God says, if you would like to eat that animal, that you have to seek by permission, so that the importance of life itself remains in your mind. How important life is. Human life is out of question, but even animal life is so sacred that it can only be taken away because you have been given permission by the Almighty. So if you are able to communicate to your children and to our next generation this fact that it is this element that has gone missing in our understanding, it has eluded us, that we fail to understand that why does Islam emphasize this halal meat so much. Of course, the second important constituent of a zabiha, to be a meat to be classified as zabiha, is that it has to be slaughtered in a way that all the blood is able to flow out of the dead animal, so that it does not get stuck in the veins. Yes, there is part of it, but most of the blood oozes out. So these are the two conditions, that you have to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and you have to slaughter the animal in a way that all the blood is able to ooze out and it's poured forth, as the Quran has said, so that it does not remain in the body of an animal, because blood itself is something, if you start consuming it and you're careless about it, then it has an effect on your own disposition, and that savagery which is associated with blood starts to infiltrate in human disposition as well. So in order to safeguard people from both these things, that you are not disinclined towards savagery, blood has been forbidden, and at the same time, the importance of life is instilled in us. Taking the life of even an animal has been made conditional to God's permission. So these are the two things. If their philosophy, if their reasoning is properly communicated to our younger generation, I think that they will leap to this understanding and they will take that extra precaution.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for a detailed explanation. Just a follow-up question. Did Quraysh at the time of Prophet, peace be upon him, used to eat zabiha meat, or they used to slaughter in the way Prophet Ibrahim told us how to?
Yes, some of them did, but as you know, that another important thing is that the zabiya has to be done by a monotheist. So the third important condition is that any person who is a polytheist, the meat of that, meat slaughtered by that person is not acceptable. So because of the fact that they associated partners with God, and they themselves said that they are polytheists, so even if they did slaughter it in that way, their meat was not acceptable because of this polytheism that they had gotten into.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Fazil Khan, you may ask your question now.
Sir, I WhatsApp you the question also. मैं एक ब्लॉग स्टडी कर रहा था, the biblical story of Prophet Lut alayhi salam, difference comparison between the Bible and the Quranic narrative about Prophet Lut alayhi salam.
Okay.
So उस ब्लॉग में एक राइटर है सुजैन हनीफ, जो है वो कह रही है कि मतलब मतलब वो है कि व्हाट एग्जैक्ट, इसमें एक सेंटेंस है डॉटर्स इन गॉड. So what exactly did they mean by daughters in God?
I don't know, unless I know the context and the explanation. She must have discussed this phrase somewhere in her book and might have written a footnote. I cannot say what she means.
थोड़ा सा context sir ये है कि however by daughters he may not necessarily have meant his biological daughters, but rather the women of the nation. Both interpretations have been suggested by commentators.
Okay. So what is the problem then?
So I don't understand what is meant by this.
I mean, it's just a figurative thing. When you say children of God or daughters of God, it just refers to God's close creatures whom He loves. That is all that is meant. It's a metaphorical expression. Just as you say,
so
children
it's
of
metaphorical.
God. Of course.
Yeah, okay,
right,
sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There is a question in the chat which is, I want to know about free will and determinism in Islam. There are instances that are not in our control, and somewhere our destiny is based on our actions and the decisions we take. So how we can know where to exert our effort and change our direction through decision making, and where to rely on Allah, as He has decided some things for us.
Right. So you see, this is something which is very evident. The sphere in which we are able to exercise our will, we very well know that. I know when I get up in the morning, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to come out and have breakfast, I'm going to go to my office. So these are actions that I decide for myself. At times I don't go to the office, I stay home. At times I go to some other place. You see, everyone knows where he or she has the freedom to choose. But for example, I could not have chosen my parents. I could not have chosen the country that I was born. Similarly, there are so many things. So I think it's just common sense to exercise and know that there are certain things in which you are able to do whatever you would like to, and there are other things in which you have no choice. You have to accept your parents, you have to accept your country, you have to accept your physique, you have to accept whatever you have been, whatever traits that you have. So these are inborn traits, and that is why they are called inborn traits. And whatever is done through our own free will is something that we all know. However, yes, there is this determinism and fatalism. This is a very age-old philosophy, and the Quran has actually solved it in a very, very keen and a very simple way. It is said that as far as actions are concerned, all actions in which a person is free to choose are the ones for which he will or she will be held accountable. She will not be held accountable for actions that she is not responsible of choosing herself. But things that are forced upon her or a person, then that is an area in which some lenience will be given, or at times complete lenience would be given. At the same time, the important thing that we need to understand is that whatever we will be rewarded or punished will be because of our own deeds or misdeeds. But the Almighty has foreknowledge of what we will do. So His foreknowledge is parallel to what we will do. It does not drive our actions. He knows what we will do, but that doesn't mean that He is forcing us to do that. So that foreknowledge is independent of our actions. And therefore, if people are consigned at the end of, on the day of judgment to paradise or hell, it would be because of what they did out of their own free choice. And wherever that free choice was hampered, they will be given concession.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There's a brief question in the chat. Is that can we pray dua can we say dua in Urdu or English in the third rakah of witr instead of Arabic?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Another question is, can you kindly clarify monarchy versus monotheism versus polytheism terms? What does it mean that one worship one God but believe or recognizes multiple gods?
I mean, this is an anomaly, this is an ambiguity. If you have to believe in one God and you have to stick with one God. People who are polytheistic, they claim that they are polytheistic, they openly declare. But then there is another category of people who can be called deviant monotheists. It is much like a person who believes in one God but still goes to the grave of a saint and prays before that saint and asks that saint to grant his wish. So this is like professing faith in one God and still showing that deviance and going towards some other person. Very similar is how Christians of today are. They are monotheists primarily, but they are deviant monotheists because they now believe Christ to be the Son of God. But when they are said that this amounts to polytheism, they don't agree with it, and they say, well, this is not polytheism. It is in fact a form of monotheism. So they indulge in debate with you and try to justify. So any person who calls himself to be a monotheist cannot be, called a polytheist. So polytheism is a creed in which you, openly and knowingly say that, yes, I believe in more than one God. But people who do not say so and still are inflicted with some polytheistic practice, we will discuss and debate with them, but at the same time, they cannot be regarded as polytheists in any way.
Thank you. Baran, you may ask your question now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Sir, my question is about the concept of forgiveness and having patience during a trial, because, for example, sometimes you do forgive a person, but you are still hurting, or you are going through a trial and try to have patience, but you are hurting through the chest, like you are wondering when will it be over because you cannot take it anymore. Does this mean that you are not actually forgiving the person, not actually having patience, or is this like also a form of patience and forgiveness?
I think it's just a feeling of hurt that is continuing to, you overcome with that feeling of hurt. So it might go away with time, but you cannot certainly say that it is hypocrisy on a person's part, or maybe something that is, at all can be called it so. So I think that perhaps what needs to be done is you should wait for some more time, because once you forgive a person and the hurt that that person has caused you is also substantial, that it takes time for that hurt to go away. So perhaps best thing is to wait and see. But during that time, if you still feel that hurt, it is quite normal. I mean, it's not against forgiveness.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. We will be concluding our session over here today. Thank you everyone for participating, and have a great rest of the day. See you all tomorrow. Allah Hafiz.